This is going to be the last of the Wearingeul series. These are the last three that I have not swatched yet. Oh, sorry about the camera. I felt like these three colors are very similar, at least when I was looking at the swatches online. And so I'm just going to do a demo and make swatch cards that I've been doing for the past couple of videos. Here's like some examples of what the cards look like. I have two types of paper. There's a thicker paper from Wearingeul themselves. It's a Korean brand. I got it directly over there from their company. And there is the second paper, Tomoe River paper. Thank you guys so much for the pronunciation correction, but this one is thinner and it allows the ink to absorb much better. I'm going to use my Midori paper as a backing so that I don't spill on my desk mat. This first one is the Architect Infinite Cube. It feels like a plain brownish color, but when I was looking at the swatches online, it actually looks like it has a sheen to it. So we're gonna test that one here. If you are new to fountain inks and just fountain pen in general, sheen is when the color shifts from one hue to the next. For this one, oops, I smudged it. So the OCD me is just going to use a different swatch paper. I believe this one, the base color is a brown, but it's going to shift either into a green or red. So I'm really excited to see what it will look like once it dries. I noticed that for Wearingeul, you do have to wait for it to dry before you see the full potential of the color. I'm sure that's true for any brand or like any type of ink and paint. I'm just someone who's very impatient, so it takes me a while before I can really see the color, and sometimes I judge it right when I have it touch the paper, but definitely you should wait so that you can see the final results of the color. The reason I'm swatching all of these onto paper is I want to see what they all look like, and I want to create a binder so that I can have all my colors set out versus like having to look through my sketchbooks and having to search online. I feel like just having it all in one place will really allow me to see the colors that I have and ultimately prevent me from buying the same colors and duplicate colors. That's my fear, is like doing these swatches, I actually see colors that are very similar to one another and I'm like, oh shoot, I ended up just buying the same color even though it's from different brands. So yeah, that's the whole point of this process, and I feel like it will be fun to show friends that come over the different colors that I have, and it feels like an ink bar experience, you know? So I don't know if anyone else has ink swatch binders of their own at home, but that's the part of this hobby that I'm in right now. I do like to dab extra ink into these pools so that I can see what the ink looks like when it's darker. And then when I have extra ink on my Kekinori nib, I will just use it in my sketchbook so that I can use all the remainder of the ink and not waste any of it. The paper in my sketchbook is very different from the other two papers that I'm using for the swatch. The paper in the sketchbook is thick. It has this like extra coating to it. It is also a slightly ivory color, so this paper makes all inks look a little bit more brighter and lighter. So I try not to base inks based on what it looks like within my sketchbook. The sketchbook is custom. You can get it on my website right now at peakerart.com. Finally, I feel like for the past couple of months I've been telling everybody that I have this sketchbook. What's nice about it is that it doesn't bleed. I noticed that it does depend on the brand. So for Wearingeul inks, it does not necessarily completely bleed through the pages, but I noticed if you are coloring pretty heavily and layering a lot of inks, it does kind of like, you can see it on the other side of the paper, but for the most part, it's not too crazy. Like it won't bleed that much, but I like using my sketchbook for things like alcohol markers, for acrylic paint markers, and of course recently fountain inks. So yeah, I recommend it if you're into that type of materials. If you want to use the sketchbooks for pencil, I'm actually developing another sketchbook that is more pencil friendly and potentially watercolor friendly too. All right, we're gonna let that ink dry and see what happens with the colors and the sheens. These two I'm really worried about because they look very similar to one another, but this is the first one that we're gonna try, and I'm super intrigued because I do love red. That's probably my favorite color of all time, and green is a second close best. It looks like the base of this one is going to be green and then the sheen is going to be red. So I'll do a first swatch here on the Wearingeul paper. By the way, if you guys are not familiar with this nib, it is the Kakimori silver nib. I originally bought the brass color one and I fell in love with it because I love that you can have thick and thin strokes by just using one nib. But I ended up getting the silver nib when I was last in Japan a couple of weeks ago, and I actually love the silver one even more because it feels more scratchy, it feels more thin actually, and so I think if you're writing with it, it's much easier to control your strokes and you could be a bit more precise, which is what I like about it. But if you're just trying to make thick strokes, then I do recommend the brass colored one. I use both in general, but that's my recommendation depending on the type of strokes and lines that you're gonna do. Also, another thing is if you're new to this hobby, I feel like Wearingeul is a great intro into the range of colors, sheens, and shimmers that you can get. But there's actually other brands that I might recommend if you're trying to just get like something more affordable and something more basic, which I think we can do in a separate video. There's lots of other brands that I would recommend if you're just trying to get into the hobby and maybe like don't want to be so committed to a bajillion colors like me. When I saw the Wearingeul booth in Korea, I went ham. At first, I was like, oh, I think I'll just get maybe like 2 or 3 colors, especially their classic popular ones. Like they have Enki. At the time, the bead glass game had just come out, and that's like another pinkish purple blue color with some shimmer. But I ended up doing more research on the spot, and these are all the colors that I ended up getting. I really like the dark colors just because that shift between one color to the next in the sheen is something that I'm really interested in general when I'm looking for inks. So you can't see it too much in this sketchbook. Like I said, it's not going to show the sheen as much, but I still like to doodle within my sketchbook and use my Kakimori because I think for me, just the act of moving my brush around and making strokes, even though I don't necessarily have to think about what I'm drawing, I'm just kind of like doodling. For me, that's really fun. Don't forget to wash your brush as well so that you don't contaminate your inks when you are swatching between different colors. I like to just clean it until the napkin is clear and so there's no more colors coming out. That's when I know that the Kakimori is clean. So this last ink, I believe, is going to be a reverse of the previous ink. When I was traveling, it kind of exploded on the plane and spilled a little bit, but it's not too bad. I think it was just leftover ink from the cap or the lid when I last opened it, because I did fill one of my Twisbies with it. So yeah, here we go. Oh, I am curious because I'm semi-new to this community. If you find that most of your community is local to you, or is it more online? So I'm based in Seattle. There's not too many pen and ink stores. Like we have 2 prominent ones, I would say. If anyone is based in Seattle, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that Kinokuniya carries a lot of inks and pens. You can also try them if you ask their staff. And then another one is the UW bookstore, I believe, in the University District. They have some inks and pens there as well. There's one store that I haven't visited yet, which is all the way over in Redmond. It's a bookstore. It's called Brick and Mortar Books, such a meta name. They also carry some inks, some dip pens, and some fountain pens. I haven't checked it out yet just because it's a little bit out of the way, but maybe one day I will make a trip over there. It's primarily a bookstore, but they do carry inks and pens as well. So in general, I was just curious because there's just not very many stores in Washington. I was wondering if the community is large in Washington, or is it actually more chill? Like, is that the reason why there's not so many ink and pen stores here? Or is it because the community is so spread out and primarily online that it's not worth opening a pen store? I also heard that Washington used to have a pen store a long time ago, but then they closed down somewhere downtown. I'm not sure. But my curiosity stems from a place where if I host ink workshops at my store, or if we, I guess, just do more ink related things and even sell inks and pens, is that something that people are interested in? Because that is an interest for us, and maybe that's something we can bring to the store, but I don't know. I have no idea. I can't tell if this community is more niche or what. Because before I got into this community, I didn't really know that much about it other than like, oh, fancy gel pens, you know? But now that I'm in it, I'm like, wait, there's so many of us and there's so many niche things, but you guys know so much about it, which I love. So yeah, I don't know. But anyways, on my sketchbook, this ink, it seems a bit more red and darker than the Infinite Cube one. It does seem kind of similar on the sketchbook though. But again, it's gonna look much lighter in this sketchbook rather than other papers. I don't know what other sketchbooks you guys are primarily using, but the two main that I use is my sketchbook here, which has the coated paper that is thick. And then I also use my Midori when I'm trying to see what other inks might look like on the Midori paper. I feel like most of my friends have been using the sketchbook that I'm using here, or they have the Midori. Those are the two main paper types that I've been seeing my friends use. And we usually just come and hang out together. Everyone brings their inks and just swatches together and just doodles together. So yeah, I'm curious about you guys if you have other sketchbook types that you're using and if that plays into a role, if you're using any fountain inks or any art materials in that sense, I guess. Because before I got into this hobby, I was using mostly alcohol markers and acrylic paint markers, which I've been getting back into. So I'm also excited to film more content about that because I've been in this like digital art rut where I don't really feel like using my iPad anymore and I just want to doodle in my sketchbook. And so I've been going back into other material types. By the way, if you layer ink like how I'm doing here, it creates this fun kind of effect where you can get darker layers of ink and lighter layers of ink. Alright, now that we've swatched everything, let me give you guys an overview of what everything looked like once it dried. So for the architecture one, it's much lighter than the last one. The Brothers color, you can kind of see the sheen, but not really, at least in this paper. I feel like it will show much better in the swatch papers that I'll show in a second. So for this first one, it does have a more brown red base, and then you can see the green sheen. It's really nice. I actually love this one a lot. Surprisingly, on the Tomoe paper, you don't see the green as much, but I saw it a lot on the thicker cardstock of the Wearingeul paper. So that's really interesting because usually the Tomoe paper shows much more sheen. So for the Brothers ink, I will say that both papers successfully do show the red sheen. This one is super nice. I would say the sheen shows very clearly even in the writing, which has less ink. So if you're going for maximum sheen, I would recommend this one. If you're filling your fountain pen, it shouldn't clog because there's no shimmer, unlike the other inks that I've swatched previously. For the Baskerville's ink, it's a red base with some green sheen. This one is probably my favorite out of the three. I will say though, on the Tomoe paper, I don't really see the sheen, so that was surprising. But I see the sheen very clearly on the cardstock for the Wearingeul paper. I was scared that these two would look very similar, but the Hounds of Baskerville is more red versus the architecture one is more brown. Phew. I'm glad I didn't buy two of the same inks. Very happy with these three that I got, and I'm gonna add it to my swatch collection. That concludes all of the Wearingeul inks that I have. So in the upcoming videos, I'll start swatching some more brands that I have. I'm really excited to show you guys my Sailor collection and my Pilot collection. I have like so many other brands that I just want to show you guys. Thanks so much for watching. I post videos every Monday, noon PST. Please comment, like, and subscribe. Let me know what you guys are interested in. Okay, bye!